Hello and welcome back to the Double on Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host Ryan, and today I'm joined by my lovely duo of co-hosts Brett
Hello.
and Wyatt.
I'm really sick, so we'll be having to deal with that today. I just wanted to get it out of the way so we can just move on.
Well, Wyatt, what are you sick with? Might you say that it is Stockholm syndrome?
Why, yes, Ryan. I believe that is exactly what we're talking about.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about basically Stockholm syndrome with video games. What video games do we play that we don't really think are that good, but for some reason we're just stuck with them? We can't get out. It's a lot. It's a lot of video games that I think all of us have done this for on many, many occasions. We're gonna dissect them and really get in deep. But first, we have some news because, as always, a day after the podcast airs, regardless of what day we recorded on, major news happens. Yeah. And we talked a lot the episode immediately beforehand about this mythical Switch Pro, the mythical Switch Pro that would be coming soon. We got the Switch Pro, and by the Switch Pro, I mean the Switch. The screen is a little bit better.
The Switch again. The
Switch again, but $50 more.
Yeah.
So, for those who have somehow managed to miss it by the time this is here, Nintendo just randomly dropped a trailer for the Nintendo Switch OLED edition, which is just a Nintendo Switch with an OLED screen. There's no changes to any of the back-end hardware. It's still using the Tegra chip, still using the same battery and everything.
It's to be fair, a little fair. There are a couple of other changes, not just the screen.
Why?
It's not changes that people. No, let me.
They
finish.
added an Ethernet port.
Let me finish. They're not changes that people were really asking for, but they are nice improvements. But it's not really what people care about.
Are they nice improvements for $50 more?
You finally have an Ethernet port so you can better connect to Nintendo's incredible online services.
What it is, it's an update to make the regular Switch a better handheld system because there's no improvements in terms of it.
But they have one that's a better handheld system.
That's why I said they're taking the base Switch and making it a slightly better portable system.
But they have that.
In comparison. No. I'm saying in comparison to the base Switch. Yeah, no, it's because all of the improvements that are made are things that make it a better portable system.
But the Ethernet only works when you're wired in the dock.
Can I not finish a sentence? Can I not even finish one sentence?
Why?
Saying the same thing and it's wrong.
No. Well, if you let me, God, my goodness. Okay. For people like me that use the Switch portably but aren't interested in a Switch, what is it called, Lite, and there are plenty of people out there that want a base Switch but still use it as a portable Switch. There are some enticing improvements to make it a better portable system. For those of us that still want to be able to actually dock it into our TV and stuff, it's nice that they're getting a few more improvements to its portable nature.
I mean, the only improvement is the screen. There's no other changes.
Yes, there are. It has a better kickstand. It's very much like a Surface kickstand.
Excuse me. The better kickstand that's adjustable. I did forget about that, Wyatt. Thank you very much for reminding me it has an adjustable kickstand now. I feel like that would totally justify the $50 purchase.
I'm just trying. Look, I'm not going to bat for it. I'm just being because there. We do have to talk about the other things because the OLED screen is the big thing, sure, but we do have to. I feel like we do have to mention.
I mean, I think saying it's a better portable Switch when the only change that affects the portable side of it is the OLED, and I don't mean tabletop because tabletop is a different game mode. That's not portable. That is tabletop play on Nintendo's own designation.
It's used. You're bringing the Switch around with you, so it's kind of under the portable banner.
But I don't think anyone who's using the portable Switch is going to be using that for anything important, right? They're not going to be using the kickstand as a selling point, I think, because you can already have you can get an adjustable kickstand for your regular Switch that makes it work better. Because the biggest issue with the kickstand I have is that you can't charge the Switch while using it, and they did not fix that.
No, well that's what I was also getting to, because there's a lot of things that they didn't change that is baffling for one. I think it would have been nice to introduce some kind of Joy-Con that doesn't have drift, or like some
Or
kind
just
of
something different. Like,
redesign, something different. Yeah. Look, what I'm saying is, I don't think anyone's happy, and I get that. And I'm not really like it's pretty underwhelming.
I think
for-
this isn't a decision by Nintendo we don't need to have like a devil's advocate positive take on, because
No.
I think
advocating for it, to be honest, because I don't think it's like a very good update. Like, it's there for people who maybe don't have a Switch, so it's like a nicer starting point, but that's about it.
well, you see,
Like,
I agree with that. I think their audience with this was people who don't already have a Switch. I think
Mhm.
that's who they're trying to hit with it. But that market of people is now so small.
No, it is. I completely agree with you. What I think, what a lot of people are saying happened that makes a lot of sense was that because a lot of people are like, well, where did all these rumors come from? A lot of like very reliable sources were talking about, back end upgrades and hardware upgrades and stuff like that. What a lot of people are saying that happened that makes a lot of sense is that they had planned to do more with this iteration of the Switch, but the current capacitor uh shortage at the
Microchip
moment,
shortage, yeah.
microchip
I think
shortage
it's both
just
that and
just meant
capacitors are
yeah,
shorting.
just meant that they had to like just slap on the OLED screen and that's it. Because my
Which
big
is still
thing,
like a baffling decision to me.
no, I agree. And my big thing is I was like, okay, they're going to announce some new kind of Switch. And the reason I said that is because I feel like they have to, because I've said it multiple times, the Nvidia chip that they're using to power the Switch is being discontinued
I mean, I
by
think we need
the
at this point we have to stop using that as a measure for them making a new Switch, because it's very clear that if they are producing a new Switch model with it, they have a deal with Nvidia to keep that whatever specialized version of that Tegra chip they're using in production. I don't think we can look at that as a reason for there to be a Switch Pro.
That's why I thought it was originally. Now it seems like the plan is different, but
Yeah.
that's
The
why
gist
I was thinking that for
the
the
gist
longest
of
time.
the Switch OLED, and that's literally what it's called. It's a Nintendo Switch OLED edition. Is basically it's a 7-inch screen, so slightly bigger. The bezels are a little bit thinner. It does have the white Joy-Cons, which I think look pretty good. They're off-white. You know, if you're looking for a new Switch and you don't already have one, your old one broke or something, this is probably a good one to go for. But at the same time, it's super, super confusing because this is $349.99 US dollars. All right. Now, what else? What do you think you can get for $300 right now, Wyatt and Brett? What
You
next
can
gen gaming
Gosh.
console?
I
you get-
wonder if there is a next gen gaming console that you could get for the same amount of money.
for
You know
less
what?
money?
For less
less
money. You
money.
know what?
Or you could-
nothing comes to mind. It's so weird.
I know someone who got an Xbox One S with like 5 games and all like the extremities for like $150. You can get more than 2 of those for one new Switch.
I mean, if you get insanely lucky, that is someone getting insanely lucky. Because
Not
right now
really
they're so
though.
hard to
They're pretty
find.
cheap, even on Amazon for one S's. Not the Series.
Oh, I
S.
thought you said Series S. Yeah.
No. Then
But
I
the
would
Series
be,
S is $300.
killing them.
If you can find a Series S and you want like a home console with an Ethernet port, the Nintendo Switch is not looking like a great pickup at this
No.
price point. I do think that it will probably do well in that market of people that don't already have one, but that market is like small. For the people that are interested in a Switch, don't already have one, and are planning to pick one up right now and don't want to wait for an actual hardware revision.
Or for some reason you have to replace yours, then you might as well replace it with like
Yeah.
a slightly nicer one. But that's after like you may not want to get it refurbished or repaired or something, and it's like,
Exactly.
no, I just want a new one.
And I think the big thing, like, if you do have the money to burn, this isn't like a worthless thing, because OLED screens are very nice. They are very good looking. And if you do use your Switch a ton portably and you want that bigger screen, not the Switch Lite, this is probably a good pickup, but it is going to be vastly more expensive than pretty much every other handheld out there. So
There is also an argument to be made that OLED screens, depending on the game you're playing, can actually save on battery life somewhat, because of the way that OLED screens work. Like if
the
there's
battery life reports we've gotten for this are exactly the same. They've reported
Exactly
the battery life has not changed at all.
In theory, OLED screens can actually save you some battery life, because there are times when, if there's just a pure black color, the pixels that are that color can just be turned off, and so it can save battery life here and there. But it depends on the game you're playing, obviously, or what you're doing.
Yeah. Gist of it is, I don't think any games are going to do that, though. That's the thing. I doubt any games are going to register true black as an option, because that is a rare thing to find. But yeah, that's our Switch Pro discussion. Anything else to add to the Switch Pro, Switch OLED? No,
I mean, like, it's. I was going to, but fine.
No, go ahead.
I don't talk about it anymore. It's like, it's not even a good thing for me, because I am part of the market that doesn't have a Switch of their own yet, and I was just kind of waiting for a Switch Pro, because that means that all the regular Switches on like eBay and stuff all become like cheaper, you would think. But this is such like a non-upgrade, and it's such a non, I don't.
Yeah,
I
no
don't
one's
see
gonna
people
sell their old
scrambling
Switch to
get
get this.
Exactly.
I don't
yeah.
call it an announcement. I call it, especially because it comes like after E3 season and like hype is kind of settled, right? It's not an announcement. It's like a cough, like a.
I think they actually saved themselves by not can you imagine if like all the Switch Pro rumors were happening, and Nintendo didn't say the thing that there wasn't going to be any hardware announcements at E3, and this is what they showed at E3? Like, there would be hell to pay. I feel like people would be a lot more mad, because people right now, I feel like, are just like, "Oh, whatever, I guess I don't really care."
They're
But
just a little bit
if that was
miffed.
shown at E3, yeah, if that was shown at E3, people would be like borderline homicidal.
It's the same situation where if they had announced like Diablo Immortal at not BlizzCon, people wouldn't have been so mad about it. It's the same situation.
Or if they hadn't said, "Do you guys have phones?" That's a big part of that one. Antagonizing your audience is usually not a great move. But yeah,
you guys
that's the
not
gist
have
of the Switch.
Switches.
I do think the one major like confusing point with this is that there are starting to be a lot of games on Switch that are clearly struggling, even first party and second party. So it looks, everything is pointing to there needing to be some kind of hardware. Even Nintendo's history of doing like a new version of whatever they put out, like the Game Boy Advance, new Nintendo 3DS, Super Nintendo, like something like that feels like it's on the horizon. But it's probably, with this OLED and the pandemic and everything, I'm betting at least a year out at this point, if not further.
And they probably had to release something.
Yeah, I'm betting they were like looking at their bottom line and were like, okay, we really do need to release something. Because I think what might have happened is they didn't want to keep producing the old Switches at this point, with the knowledge that they want to have this new Switch model. But then again, like, I don't even know, have they said if they're stopping production on the base Switch model? I don't think they have.
No idea.
So, I don't know. This will be confusing going forward with the now 3 versions of the Switch that exist that are all basically the same, aside from battery life and a different screen. All right. We got some other minor news to talk about. And the only reason I bring up this little game that's coming out is because Brett and I have a history of being fans of giant robots hitting each other.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now,
from
Brett,
time to time.
I gotta ask you: have you ever heard of the franchise Super Robot Wars?
Yes.
Did you know they've made 30 games?
And almost none of them are in the language that we speak.
But they're making a 30th. It's coming out. They're making Super Robot Wars 30, and you can get it in English in Southeast Asia.
Okay. So the Gundam Breaker strat, you just gotta go on Amazon and do it that way. Yeah.
For those who don't know, these games are kind of they have a cult following because it's very rare to get mech anime games or mech games in general that are decent quality, and they're basically Fire Emblem with mechs. So if you're a fan of mechs, and especially franchises like Gundam, look into them. Maybe we'll actually get a proper localization at some point. But I gotta give it a shout out while we still can.
Someone's gotta recognize it, man.
Someone's gotta recognize it. Okay, we had a state of play a few days ago.
Did we?
We did. Now, Wyatt,
Sure.
Wyatt, you and I watched the State of Play,
Mhm.
and I think I came out of that just feeling like, I didn't learn anything. It
Yeah,
wasn't wasted time because I enjoyed myself for the 20 minutes that it was on. But at the end of it, I was like, this really feels like it could have just been put on like a different event. Like, keep this as filler for the bigger event.
yeah, it was like a very nothing kind of. I mean, and not that they didn't show anything. It was just like it didn't really elicit a lot of reactions from me at all. It was very like, that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
It's just an unenthused. Okay. I mean, obviously they were pivoting the whole thing around Deathloop, but we've seen this already. Like everything they showed off, it all sounds great, but and it was nice that it was kind of uncut gameplay. But I mean, we've seen so much of this game at this point. It's in that state of like we get it. I want to play it. I get it.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
past the
You
point
know?
of needing to continue seeing it.
It's the people that are interested in the people that would be interested in it are already interested in it, and they
Or I've
have been
already
interested in it.
pre-ordered.
Yeah, exactly. The people who care already care, and the people who are never going to care already don't care, and now you've wasted like 7 minutes more of their time. I knew there wasn't going to be anything else at the end, but I'm watching it anyway just so I could be like, okay, so the Deathloop thing again.
Yep.
It was just why show so much more of a game? It just doesn't just play it at this point.
Especially because Deathloop seems to be a game that is relatively condensed. It seems to be going for
Yeah.
that like short and tight Hitman experience. It's very replayable rather than a game that has a ton of new things to see. And at this point, I really feel like they've shown me like more than half of the game
Mhm.
at this point, and it feels a little weird. But yeah, not even to mention that this is the newest game coming from Xbox Game Studios, headlining a Sony event,
Wonderful.
which is
It's this awkward
we
kind of
live
like, yeah.
in a very strange
There's
time for
this, I
video
guess.
games.
And
So that's a
I'm
thing.
looking through. I'm also looking through the announcements, with the exception of like a couple. A lot of it's already stuff we've heard about. You know, if it was a lot
Yeah.
of new stuff, it'd be fine. But I mean, Tribes of Mid. I have the list here. Like Tribes of Midgar, we already knew about. Fist, we already knew about. It's been a while, but we've heard about it.
Sifu, we
Yeah.
know about.
Sifu. I remember seeing things for Jet a long time ago.
Yep.
Death Stranding director's cut was just more of an explanation from a couple of weeks ago.
But I do think
that was an
Yeah.
announcement.
the highlights for me, and I don't know if you two agree, were definitely Jet and the director's cut of Death Stranding solely for the fact that there is now kart racing.
Yeah. Jet was weird. I remember us watching the Jet presentation. We were like, the developers sound just as confused as we are of what this game is.
Also, they sounded confused. It just kind of sounds like they were trying to sell me the way they would sell like a movie without revealing too much about it. But I want to play a video game and I want to know what the game is.
Yeah. They were trying to keep it vague.
I didn't get a good sense of what it was, and I like Super Brothers as a developer. They make really weird, interesting stuff. I love Sword and Sorcery quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it was just bizarre, and I didn't know like what I was looking at. Like I was like, what kind of there's exploration, I guess. But what are you exploring? Like, why are you exploring what's happening here? It was very odd. It was very pretty, but I just didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah, because they didn't go to any details about mechanics and systems. So I think when you see a game like that doesn't look immediately like something you can draw connections to, or like if someone is showing me a third-person action game, I don't need to know the controls because I understand what a third-person action game is like. Jet is not like that. Jet is a game that looks very unique and doesn't look like it has mechanics that you would find in a lot of other games. So I really want to see them like go through like, okay, how do you fly this ship? Like, what is the actual control scheme here?
It's a situation where it seems very specific, but they're being very non-specific about how they talk about it.
That said, I think we both feel positive about the game. It's just a little bit vague
I mean,
at this point. Like I don't know what it is, despite them showing it off like 10 times.
Yeah, there's no red flags. It's just like what is it? Like I don't really understand the purpose of it.
That could be a really good thing, because it might come out and be super unique and different, and just fill a space in games that we don't have. So maybe there's a reason for it. But
And again, it's a good developer. I trust them to make quality work. So it's not like, oh, this is going to be bad. It's just it was a weird showing because I just didn't know what was going on.
Yep. All right. That's basically the news we have this week from most major things. Unless it's something that jumped out at you too from various other news sources. But we don't really have any major games. No big reveals or anything, because it is the wind down from E3. The
How could we
calm
forget
after the storm.
How could we forget the Witcher mobile game that looks like a Pokemon Go thing, but with Witcher
yes.
monsters?
Yep. The Witcher Monster Slayer.
How could we forget?
Forget what? Why? Like, what about that? Do we just forget about the game?
How could we forget that it's coming out or something? I don't know.
All right. We do have. I do like to end news when we have it, when it's possible, on a feel good announcement. Our feel good announcement for today is that Summer Games Done Quick 2021 ended and raised over $2,890,000 for Doctors Without Borders. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
All right.
It's a large number. It's always good to see these charity events do really well, especially because Games Done Quick is always really fun. So
yeah,
glad to see, especially during the pandemic, they're still doing well and not having any issues with running the events and whatnot. All right, now it's time to talk about games that we kind of don't, maybe not like, but we still play them. Good? Everyone understand what's happening?
No.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Brett, you seem so enthusiastic. I want you to start us off. What have you got hidden in your den of dislike?
It's not really hidden at all, really. But there have been a lot of FPS games that have come out in the last little bit that have not been very good. And just to pick two of the easy ones that I think a lot of people would agree with. Battlefield 5 and Black Ops Cold War are, I think, going to be in the future when when we're looking back on the history of these types of games, we're just going to be like, yeah, these are just like, I don't really know what happened there, but this is just not good. And it's two very different scenarios, but I think a similar thing kind of holds them to the same thing that we're shooting for, of like things that make us feel good about playing games that we don't like or are just bad. And for both of them, and for a lot of other shooters that people don't like, it's just straight up the gunplay just feels so nice and so slick. And I think a lot of people would agree that, especially in Battlefield 5's case, that was the best part of the game. And before they removed even that, it was like the only thing that was holding people in. And now for me, it's a similar case with Cold War, where I'll like hop in every like few weeks or something and be like, oh yeah, this is this is all right. And then like I'll just have one bad game and I'll just be like, this is the worst thing I've ever put into my poor Xbox. My God, this is terrible. And then I won't play it for another like 2 weeks. But I keep coming back, and I hate it. I don't like that it does that to me, and I wish it would stop. But it's for me also. It's like this thing where it's like, well, every game's got like the M4 or the MP5, like the same, because they're real weapons that real armies use in real life today or in the past or whatever. And I'm super interested in games like the Battlefield games and Cold War, where they have just like weird guns that I never thought that I would use the sniper that the Halo sniper is based off of in a video game. I never thought I would be able to use that. Unfortunately, it's in a pile of garbage, but I can do that now. And so my brain goes, that thing looks super sick, and you can kill someone in one shot with it. Go use it. And I'll go, okay. And then I'll start crying because it's not fun. That keeps happening.
Yeah, the king of those weird weapons was definitely Battlefield 1, because you look at some guns and it's where does this thing even begin and end? Like what like they got the two clips that are making like a V shape. And it's like these two top loading clips. It's insane. But no, it's with Battlefield 5, the other thing is they had so many cool like ideas for that were like legitimately really new, and I thought like added a lot to it. Like I'm very alone in this, but I thought building sandbags and like little turrets and basically a lot of base building was actually really cool, because it allows you to just completely level an area and then build it back up, which I thought was really interesting. I thought all the new stuff that they did with like the squad mechanics was great, and like just keep making sure that people are working together more and stuff like that. What a shame. What a shame.
It's even more of a shame because it's like these things, whether they're like like fully realized, like I would consider like the mobility in 5 to be pretty like well fleshed out, and I like the base building things too, but they're a little like, it doesn't seem like they're like half baked. I don't, at least in my opinion, like you could do more with them. Little tiny like 2 foot deep ditches don't really do it for me or for cover at all. And it seems like people just kind of associated them with bad game, and we haven't really seen word on either of those things or a lot of other things that were introduced in 5 in 2042. I think they've said that mobility would be like the same, but I could be wrong on that.
Any first-person shooter I play that doesn't have crouch sprinting makes me really sad, because crouch sprinting is one of the best things I've ever seen in a first-person shooter. It's great.
Yeah.
Dude,
It's
I legitimately
useful.
want to quit a first-person shooter now if I can't sprint and then crouch slide.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's become
the
a mechanic
sliding
that I just expect to be there.
Yep. Also, the high ledges that you can reach in Battlefield 5, I missed that in a lot of other games, because you can legitimately reach ledges that are like above your head, and if you jump up, your guy can like grab and clamber up, which is great. And we haven't even talked about the customization, which I understand isn't historically accurate, but if you kind of take it for what it is this like insanely over the top like Hollywood blockbuster aesthetic for World War II, it's great. There's a lot of really cool looking cosmetics that again are very kind of over the top and cartoony, but if you kind of accept them for what they are, they're great.
Feels very Captain America, First Soldier, or Wonder Woman kind of.
Yeah. Very romanticized version of World War II.
If you take it as that, they look awesome. Like legitimately, I loved hunting for different like unlocking different cosmetics for it, just because they look so cool.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's trapped in a pile of garbage that I never want to play, so I never do it.
Honestly,
which is
unfun things.
What kills it for me, and you're a lot harsher on the game than I am, and I totally understand it. What kills it for me is just all of the live service stuff that just doesn't work at all. That's really what kills it for me. I'll never understand putting one battle pass in for all 4 classes is, I don't even know where to begin with that. Like the biggest thing, you have this game that's very much about class diversity and making sure you have the right like composition for a certain situation. But if everyone's trying to unlock cosmetics and new gear and stuff, and they're all working off of the same like battle pass, then that means everyone's using the same classes to do the same things, and so your variety
can you imagine them
up.
screwing up and doing the same thing but with the 20 different character operators that they're planning on having, and you just see everyone playing one out of like 10 or 20 different classes? That's gonna be horrible. They better not do that, because Jesus,
that would be
awful. It's giving me a headache just thinking about it.
Because the problem is I could see them doing that. I could legitimately see that being a thing that happens, and it would be horrendous.
I will say everything about what's it called, 2042 seems to be like, okay, Battlefield 5 was a mistake. We're going back to what you guys like. And that was like probably one of like far and away one of the biggest complaints that the fan base had it. So if they Oh man, it's gonna break my heart if they do it again.
I'm waiting for the. I'm keeping my hopes in check. I'm waiting for the screw up. I'm just waiting for there to be one.
It's the EA catch.
Mhm.
It's the giant EA, but
We haven't hit the
But
butt yet.
wait. All right. So we talked about live service things. I think we can keep it on the live service track for a little while because I am one of those people where I talked about this last week. Live service mechanics have worn my patience down to the point where I will almost quit a game solely based on live service being a part of it if it's at all like feels at all like it's trying to give me any kind of fear of missing out type deal. I'm almost instantly out at this point. But there is one scenario that will keep me playing games like that. And that is if they have some kind of character or gear progression system that changes how things look over time. All right? So I'm talking like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you upgrade the armor. The further into the game you get, and it changes appearance because you upgrade it more. As soon as you have that type of thing, I'm stuck there. I can't leave because I have to look fly. All right? That is... my Eivor has to look super fly, all right, which means I have to earn it. I can't no store crap because none of that levels up as you give it better appearances. You can't do that with the store stuff. So what's the point? All right.
Yep.
That is a thing that will keep me playing so many like poorly made games if they do that. Yep. Give me some proper fashion.
And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later. I think you guys know what's coming up soon.
I don't. I'm excited because I'm
Oh,
nearly brain dead today. So very excited to hear
barely
that.
breathing.
That is legitimately why I didn't quit Monster Hunter the first time I played it. Actually, no, the second time I played it because I did quit Monster Hunter the first time I played it. I quit and was like, oh, I don't like this game. Why are the weapons all so slow? Came back a year later, played it again. It started to click for me and I kept playing because I wanted to see the cool gear, and then by the end of it I was just in. But that's the thing, like if you have that, especially in a game genre that doesn't usually have it, so I'd love to see that in things like Ace Combat. I would love an Ace Combat game that gives you like, it doesn't need to be anything major, but make it so the missiles have like a different tip, you know?
Dude, you should play the 3DS game where you can have a Donkey Kong jet, and I am not joking. You can have I think there's a Donkey Kong, a Luigi, a Mario, a Rosalina, and like a Peach skin or something, and it's all on like realistic, like it's just the F-22, but it's got Donkey Kong's like stretched face over it or something like that.
Beautiful.
It is hilarious looking.
And I will say too, I don't think this is like a bad game at all, but the amount of customization that you can have in Watch Dogs Legion is a huge reason I kept playing. Like the instant I got a new agent, I was like, all right, I'm taking him to the shops, and I am and I'm completely changing the way this guy looks based on like how I want to role play this character. And I even got it down to a science where it's like, okay, this one spot has like 5 or 6 shops around it. I always go there because it has the most amount of stores everywhere.
See, and I almost ended up always doing the opposite of I would get the characters how they look normally and then try to like play them based on how they were dressed and whatnot. But like I got the dude in a tank top and like the kung fu pants, and I was like, all right, this dude's going running in and just melee all the time.
Yep.
Fun stuff like that of having those different customization options. And if you put any like roguelike thing in your game, I'm gonna play it. I may not like it, but I'm gonna play it. It's gonna happen.
Yep.
So as soon as you have that kind of random run progression, I'm in.
One thing for me, and this is going to transition into like the main game that I wanted to talk about. The one thing for me, and this is very, not everyone's going to feel this way. This is very specific to me, but if you have a mechanic or a system that doesn't work, but in theory is really cool, or you can be like, oh,
Absolutely.
I see where you were going with that, and that's really cool. That keeps me playing.
Especially if it almost gets there. If it's almost there.
Yeah. And that leads me perfectly into Biomutant, because Biomutant, in terms of having things that make me play crappy games, has it all, man. It has everything you could possibly imagine. It has really cool customization. It has really cool systems and mechanics that like almost work. It has a really interesting like world and environment, which I really liked. It has an interesting aesthetic to all of its armor, which I really like. It has a lot of customization. It has it all. It has everything you would possibly want in a bad game that keeps you playing. Just because there's such a combination of so many weird things going on, and none of it works, and it's all awkward and strange and kind of really bad. But as you're playing it, you're like, man, like you're almost imagining what the developers were imagining. Like they had this great idea of um it's a lot like Fable in the sense that there's a lot of dialogue, and you can pick between different things. That's like a clear like good choice, like a good choice or evil choice, right? And what's cool is that you're like um the like devil or the angel on your shoulder manifest themselves as actual characters, kind of like swaying you to do one thing or another, and they actually have like banter with each other, and they like fight. And it's not good banter, it's not well written banter, but that's such a cool idea where you make a decision, and the angel and devil on your shoulder are kind of like arguing like an old married couple. Like I could see that working really, really well if you had some really good writing to back it up, you know? Or the idea that you have to construct different vehicles in order to like safely walk across different parts of like the map and stuff like that is so cool. And there's all these different customizable pieces to like make your these different mechs look different and interesting. None of them control well, and they're all horribly awkward, but it's such a cool idea that you just kind of keep playing, and there's so many cosmetics to like make them look really interesting and unique. And yeah, and then the big thing was just the upgrades and customization for your character is just fantastic because it has such a weird mix of like modern clothing. Like there's literally you can get like a pair of just skinny jeans with like Converse, or you can get like robes and stuff like that. So you can get this really weird like Jackson Pollock-esque kind of look of just like throw on whatever, and then your like different mods or visually show up as like, okay, I'm gonna stick like this weird metal piece that like you literally stick into your arm with like a nail, and that's gonna be like a mod for your shoulder piece or something like that. It's so like scrapped together, and it's such a cool look, and you get so many of these pieces as you go. And the best part is there's no inventory limit whatsoever, so you can just hold on to as much of this as you want. So it just creates this really addicting rhythm of like, I want the next thing that I can stick on my shoulder pads. So it just keeps you going. It's
Yeah, same
everyone laughs
thing
at
for
me,
me.
but it's
In
very addicting.
Brett, I'm sure you're familiar with the game Daemon X Machina, but
Yes.
one thing that I love in that game, and I think that is a perfect example of a game that like isn't technically that great, but it's landing in a niche so well that I'm gonna play it regardless because like there's so few games like it. But one thing it does is when you upgrade your character in the upgrade screen, you get like mechanized body parts that change your character model to look different based on like what your upgrade is. So if you get like rocket boosters so you can double jump, guess what? Your character now has rocket boosters for legs. You don't get legs anymore. You get rocket legs. And I think that that's such a cool little thing that will make me want to see all the different, types of armor and whatnot that I can get with that system. Same way that like Biomutant does it, where you get those different looks at different times, which I love.
And yeah, no, and again, like the weird stuff that you can throw together in bio, like literally there's different gun components. Like when you're crafting a gun, it's like, okay, you have to have the base part, which kind of dictates what kind of gun it is, and then you can put on like a barrel, and then something at the end of your barrel, a scope, a stock, different types of magazines and stuff like that. And the pieces they get are insane. Literally, the handle of a gun you can have is a banana. It doesn't make any sense, but it's just
But it's great.
the weirdest, wacky, or like, oh, this weapon is literally a plunger with nails coming out of it. Like that's great. That's weird and kind of hilarious, and it's great to see while you're fighting. Or someone will have a toilet strapped to just the log of a tree, and that's his like giant hammer. And it just adds so much like character to something that would otherwise be kind of very bland and forgettable.
Yeah, I love that one, especially when I think a lot of games can make up for mediocrity with a sense of style. Especially like that's basically the entire genre of Eurojank is just making up for being technically unable to do something by trying as hard as you can to get it to maybe work. And a lot of games like that are objectively not super great. Like, they just have mechanics that don't work as intended or are super buggy, but you can see what they were going for, and it's super cool to see someone attempt it. And I think that means a lot of those games get played. I've played pretty much every Spiders game, unfortunately, and a lot of them are not fun, and I wish I hadn't played them for as long as I did. But Greedfall, they brought it back around. Eventually, my misplaced faith turned into actual good, well-placed faith.
They figured it out.
They figured out where to put the budget so that the game comes out good.
And I do feel like, too, is like partially as we're all developers, I think there's a certain sense of like when something doesn't work, but you can tell whatever studio was working on it, you could tell they're trying their absolute hardest.
Especially when you like can figure out where it went wrong or like why they weren't able to do it. And you're like, I totally see why this didn't work.
When something doesn't work, not because of laziness, but maybe it's just like
a situation
in budget, or you just didn't have the people to pull it off or something. It's like, you give it a lot of leeway because you can tell the work still went into it, and that's the thing with Biomutant, is that so much of this doesn't work, but you can tell that they weren't being lazy. They just were really excited to do all these interesting different things, and unfortunately they couldn't pull it off, but you could tell they really wanted to, and they were trying.
Yeah,
definitely. I think one of my favorite examples of something like that is this is a game I can guarantee neither of you has ever heard of, or probably ever would have heard of if I had not mentioned it here. A game called Warsim. So Warsim is a game you can find on Steam. It is a entirely text-based ASCII art, super deep, like fantasy realm simulator that like generates character models with ASCII art and everything, and does these super unique events and all that. It looks super bonkers. And it's very, very fun. But it's the kind of game that you look at and, like, I think unless you're a little bit insane, you don't buy this game because you don't understand what you're looking at. You look at it and you see just a bunch of, like, insane-looking ASCII art pieces and just don't comprehend what is in front of your vision. And I think it's one of the best examples of that kind of thing, where it's a game that, like, clearly is made by, like, one person who does not have the time or the budget to do art. So they decided to work around it by doing like procedural ASCII art, which is, I think, a perfect workaround, but it also means that you're gonna find a lot of people that just won't play the game because they don't like the look of that. But I think it's great to see people attempting that, especially when they succeed relatively well, because like the benefit of having only one person is you don't need to sell that many copies to make your money back.
Yeah. And I think also another I guess kind of boon from that is that you end up making something really unique from the limitations, whether people end up playing it or not. Like just the fact that, I guess for good or bad reasons, no other game really is going to look like that. That's enough of, I would consider, an achievement.
And you have a high chance when you do something that's really out there but doesn't work. You have the high chance of inspiring someone who's like, wow, that's great. I think I can like push that forward and do.
Especially if someone with money sees it. If someone with a lot of money sees that idea and is like, I really want to see this succeed, you might get something really cool out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I do have another couple of games to bring up. I think a few of us have had the misplaced pleasure of playing the Fallout series. Now, I think Fallout 4 is almost underrated, and that so many people say it's bad, but it's still a fun game. And I think that's like the perfect encapsulation of Bethesda as a company. On a lot of levels, people are right when they say these games don't have a lot of depth. They don't have a lot of like meaning behind them. There's not a whole lot of hidden narrative or anything. A lot of the time it's just made to be cool. The environments get stale very quickly. but I don't care because I can play a game in first person and go do things in an RPG. I think that alone sells so much for me of being able to have the RPG numbers and whatnot, but in first person. I'm excluding the gameplay, everything else, but just the perspective is so rare to get like a proper 3D first person game that is an RPG and not like a shooter or a terrible action game. I think is what you really want to see, and Bethesda has cornered that market.
So maybe a genre like a type of game that hasn't been done in a while, even if it's not very good, it's still scratching that itch, right?
Oh, I'm talking specifically about Bethesda. Like, I think Bethesda, everything they make has that same feeling of this isn't that technically apt. It's not that well put together in a lot of ways, but you can tell there was an intent behind it, and they really wanted to make just like a fun adventure for you to do. And I think that the only companies that are doing that without feeling like they need to cater to a specific audience in a way, so they don't need to like change with the industry a lot. You still get those feelings of, okay, they're doing whatever they want to do in this format. And I think that goes a long way for at least Skyrim. I think up until Fallout 4 is kind of where it starts to peter out after Fallout 4 with 76 and whatnot being a little bit of a train wreck and all that. But I think up until then, you had like this.
I don't know, Ryan. I feel like calling Fallout 76 a train wreck is still giving it
too much credit.
Too much credit, because that would imply it has some kind of pulse to it. It's a complete flat line. Oh God! Anyway, I can't. But what I did want to say is it's interesting with Bethesda too, because at least for me, and I think for a lot of other people, it's like we can, with a Bethesda game, it's like we do like that first person like RPG adventure, even if they don't pull it off, it's there. And for me, it's like what brings it over the top. It's like, okay, I'll play Fallout 4 or Skyrim or whatever for a bunch of hours because they have good writing to string you along in those quests as well. So even if like the gameplay wise what you're doing isn't great, you still have a great story that you're following along, and so it almost like distracts you from the less than stellar gameplay at times. You know?
Yeah.
Writing can definitely do that a lot. And I don't know how much longer I want to stick on the Bethesda train, but I do have a segue into another example if we're done with Fallout.
I think Bethesda's unique in that there's not a whole lot else I can say about them. Like a lot of these games, we can go really nitty gritty into the details, but with Bethesda, it's really just a situation of the games from an outside perspective are not that technically apt or super interesting because they're not doing a lot of things that other games are doing. They're missing out on the opportunity to tell a story in a more complete way that a lot of games are doing now, especially when you compare like Skyrim to The Witcher 3, because they were relatively close in time span. Even like The Witcher 2 was doing a lot more narrative before then and still had those activities you could do in the world. But at the same time, you really do get that sense of scale and whatnot with that perspective. And they do this thing where a lot of people say they want Bethesda to have those huge environments and like huge cities with nameless NPCs and whatnot wandering around. But when you do have them, all the NPCs in every city are named and have a role, you get the benefit of like things feeling really cohesive in a way that most games can't. Where like in The Witcher 3, if you're walking around Novigrad, you see so many people that if you follow one, you're going to see that they don't really have like a super in-depth routine or anything. And it's because there's so many, you can't do that. You can't do that for every single character. I think Cyberpunk is like a good example of that. You really cannot do that for that many people. It just doesn't work unless you're employing some kind of crazy procedural gen thing. But like obviously Bethesda's not going to do that. They're going to hand make it all, and it's going to be varying quality, but it exists, and it's a unique like twist on the world and very sandboxy in how it works out.
Yeah.
All right, Brett. Now I'm done. Go ahead.
Segue away.
Well, it's I feel like the kind of sentiment of good writing kind of be able to pull you through a bad, I guess, thing in general is kind of not unique to just like a few games. I feel like it's a pretty common issue where like gameplay might suck, but the writing's good.
Yeah.
And that is very much true for a lot of games on like the older side. Also, it's like people trying to go back and play them now. Um, it's whether you have the taste of like, oh well, I understand it's old, or like, oh, this sucks but the story's good. It's just that's they can't help the time that they were made in. Um and specifically, I'm thinking about good old Yoko Taro's
Yep.
debut title. I feel like you can't talk about this sort of thing without mentioning Dragon Guard, because oh my god, it's a
100%.
piece of garbage, but it's also one of like it's just art. And there's so many games that still to this day are made as art, but control like the worst thing and are just horrible in every like actual aspect of what a video game should be. Like every single character is a horrible, horrible human being. There's like one attack button and there's no combos, so you're just mashing that, killing like hundreds of enemies in like the least interesting brown, large environment for a Muso game, I guess. And then they got the Ace Combat 3 guy to do Dragon Combat that also sucks, and he should have stayed with the planes instead. But like the music is made by an insane person and the story is made by an insane person, and they just kept whacking at it, and now we have Near from those games. They're tangentially related, and to this day
I mean,
people
tangentially, they are
still.
directly related.
Well, yeah, to the first Dragon Guard, yeah, there's a horrifying fifth ending that ties it in with the real world. And but like and that's another part of the same thing. Like you wouldn't have someone trying to do that in like a lot of other games, even at the time, if you're not a Kojima type.
Yeah.
But here you have this absolute bastard just thinking that it would be funny if the characters from a medieval magical fantasy world just went through a portal and came out over Tokyo and got shot down by an F-15. They just thought that would be funny, and it's in the game now as a thing that you can get. And yeah, the entirety of Nier comes from that. But as a game, that is I would almost consider it a piece of garbage for how it plays. But I think that's one of the reasons that people like it. As weird as that sounds, it is like the
Yeah.
most Stockholm Syndrome
100%.
game. Yeah.
Having played old Nier before the remake,
Hmm.
for a lot of portions of that game, and I never finished it when I played the original because of that. Like, I was too young to be like, oh, this game's art. I was like I think
Yeah, yeah.
13 or 14, I think. And I looked at this game and I was like, oh, this is just some weird, terrible RPG. I'm gonna go play Oblivion instead. And that's exactly what happened. And now Nier Automata is one of my favorite games ever made. So it's one of those situations. Yeah, I think that's definitely super clear, especially because Brett, you were talking about playing Metal Gear Solid 2 recently, and how your
Yes.
experience with
Yeah.
that is. See, I am gonna say I did not have the same experience as you. Metal Gear Solid 2 for me went pretty smoothly. So
I'm glad. I'm glad it
curious
did for you.
what I'm curious what you did wrong.
Oh, really?
Whoa!
Well, I guess what I did wrong is just by playing the game how it asks to be played and using the absolutely fantastic first person controls for the combat sections that it wanted to be in first person because it told me to do it.
Yeah,
Um, and there's a lot of things about that. Like I still obviously like respect it for being as important of a Metal Gear game and as important of a game as it is. But in terms of like actual gameplay, it's like it's very
it's aged
clunky, and I
worse
was
than the
not.
first.
Yes, which is weird because I said this when I posted about it in the Discord, but just like the first game should be the weird like 3D controlling stealth PS1 game with like there's like a what are you're throwing stuff and shooting people, and the sniping is like this, and there's 2 whole boss fights of it, and it's terrible. But it ends up standing up way better than 2, in my opinion, because instead of making just 2 boss fights with the wiggly shooting, now it's all the shooting is the wiggly shooting. And the stealth, the opposite of the shooting, the thing that you should be doing instead, is like super like I was getting spotted by guys outside of their little vision cone in the top of the screen on the mini map, and like I wasn't as much of a fan of okay, the loop is I'm gonna walk into the room and I'm gonna try to do what I think is right. Oh, the floor exploded and they didn't tell me that it would do that. Or oh, this guy that I couldn't see because you have to unlock the mini map in this game it wasn't there and I didn't know. I wasn't a fan of the trial and error, doing the same thing over and over again until I found the right version.
See, that's the difference, Brett. That's the part I like. I would have
liked it more. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I would have liked it more if Raiden had less health. Because what this means with his huge ass health bar that's like half the screen is that I walk into a room and I mess up and I go, oh geez, and people start shooting at me and I'm just standing there as all these bullets just enter my body, and I just go, can I do it again? Can I get the second chance already? But no, I have to sit there and wait, and I don't feel like sprinting through to the next place and then alerting all the other guards in there, just having a train of like 50 people with like riot shields and shotguns following me. I just want to die already. And it wouldn't let me. It wouldn't even give me the sweet release of death, Ryan. It wouldn't even give me that.
Well, there's another game that doesn't give you the sweet release of death, and that is a little game by the name of Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Now, I don't know if you played Peace Walker, Brett.
I have not yet.
But Peace Walker is a weird game because it is the portable Metal Gear Solid 3 follow-up where like most of the game is mission-based and you're going to different areas and doing these little portable missions and like capturing soldiers and bringing them back and doing these crazy things. So I think it's an interesting twist on the Metal Gear formula that works very strangely. And it's not amazing. It's the kind of game where like it doesn't have the same tightness that 1 through 3 in Metal Gear Solid have, having that like very narrative through line, and you're always doing something related to the plot, or it's some funny like side thing that you're doing. Whereas Peace Walker, it's a portable game. It has a ton of missions that you can do that are completely optional and just filled with filler, because it was meant for that. It kind of followed that like Monster Hunter formula of having these different missions to go on a grind for these different soldiers that you could get. But that didn't really fit super well with Metal Gear, at least conceptually at the time. I think it worked for a lot of people because that game is pretty well regarded. For me, it didn't work in a lot of ways, but the way that it did work was the base building and collection bit. Because as soon as you put base building and collection in a game, my little monkey brain goes, "Oh, I want to get if I can find a banana and put it with this other banana, I have 2 bananas now. And then I can go and get more bananas, and then I come back and I have 6 bananas. And then wait until those bananas, they're gonna grow into a tree, and I can get more bananas.
Even more bananas.
What are we talking about?
Why?
We're talking about Metal Gear.
If you give a man a banana, he will eat for a day. But if you plant the man a banana, he will eat for the rest of his life.
And if you hand Kojima a banana, he will teach everyone how to grow persimmons. That's what's gonna happen, Wyatt.
No. He's gonna throw those bananas into a box and strap it onto his back and just send it to you on foot.
On foot. That's him now. So I think Peace Walker has this super unique feeling of like doing the proto Metal Gear Solid 5 thing of building your base out and everything in this weird portable format that feels like it shouldn't work, but just barely manages to, because of the fact that there's every single mission you have the opportunity, you have the question of, oh, but is he better than this other dude? Can I yoink him and get my better soldier? Is he gonna help me build this thing that I can build to get arbitrary numbers higher that I don't need, but I want them because I want 12 bananas. Okay? I think that game ticked something in my brain, and to me the weird part is it did it more than 5. When I played Peace Walker and I didn't play it portably, I played it in the collection that came out. I could not stop. I could not stop doing random missions and collecting random things to unlock like the secret ending way at the end that was just a weird thing that doesn't mean anything, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I don't know if I was having fun.
Kojima loop.
I don't think I was having fun, but I did it. I think that's really the through line here. I think Kojima knows how to inflict Stockholm syndrome on everyone who plays his games. So
yeah,
the man is insane enough. He's probably figured it out.
He's just too art house for his own good. He wants to direct movies, but he never will. He never will.
Hollywood's never going to accept his crazy ideas. Are you kidding me?
he doesn't care about Hollywood. He's gonna do his own movie. He's not gonna ask Hollywood for permission. He's gonna get Guillermo del Toro, and they're gonna ride off in their minivan over to wherever they maybe to the moon or something.
He's got a bunch of director friends. I know Adam Wingard was in Death Stranding as well.
I mean, he has an entire film cast in Death Stranding, right? You could just make a movie with those people. It'd be weird, but you could do it. He's gonna make the next
Kojima
Room
being
movie.
Weird? What?
I just want to see Kojima attempt to make a movie that's super bad, like intentionally, but with incredibly high name actors. Like, get everyone that's in Death Stranding that they're super good actors, and just have them in this terrible like art house garbage fest. That is entirely just like mocking everything wrong with a lot of those art house movies. And I think that would be the ideal Kojima movie.
That would be good.
It would be called Art House Movie.
There you go.
But some of the things we've surprisingly wound up talking about a fair bit is surprise endings to games. And I think we do games on the show. We do games and awards, and this time I want to have we're going to do a game.
Where is this going?
We're going to do a game, and I want you to think of a game that you've played and enjoyed, and I want you to think of a secret ending. All right, this game gets a secret ending directed by Hideo Kojima or Yoko Taro or someone of that ilk, and it's just nonsense, right? It's nonsense, but you want to see it because maybe it could lead to something interesting. All right, now I'm going to give an example here. I want to sit down and play a video game, and I'm playing this video game.
No way.
And I don't. This is a weird one because I don't think it needs to be a specific video game. In fact, I kind of want it to be like a weird indie game that comes out, something like a Hollow Knight situation, or like maybe at the end of Bloodstained, this happens, and you finish the game, and then you finish the game, and the credits roll, and right in the middle of the credits, just at a random point, if you press a button on your controller, the credits stop, and a video of Hideo Kojima plays. All right, it's just like Jeff Keighley's thing. And then he just sits there and explains exactly how the game you just played is connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then there's a second part to this. That's the first part. But after he's finished, the credits resume playing. And if you find the right moment to press the button again, he then explains how the game is connected to the Kingdom Hearts universe. All right?
Less surprising,
but more convoluted. And then at the very end, he reveals that the sequel to the game you were playing will be Elden Ring. That's what I want.
Oh my god.
I want the most bonkers description he has, just in the middle of a random game. That is just a secret ending. If you press a button at the right time, you get Kojima explaining how your game is the prequel to Elden Ring. Through the Marvel Universe and Kingdom Hearts.
There you go.
Jesus.
There you go.
How are we supposed to follow that up?
Well, you got to do it.
I got one. So I've been replaying Witcher 3 recently, and there's a moment in without spoiling, there's a moment where a character who can kind of hop between different points in time or different like planets and stuff like that is retelling some of the tales and some of the crazy places she visited. And one of them, she's like, oh yeah, there was this crazy world where people were living in buildings that were stacked on top of each other and they were flying cars and stuff like that. It was crazy. And then Garrett was like, yeah, BS, no way. And everyone was like, oh, that's a Cyberpunk reference, because Cyberpunk obviously hadn't come out at the time. And so it was this fun little reference. Wouldn't it be great if CD Projekt Red, they went to Kojima and they're like, we want you to make an ending to Witcher 3 that is the most bonkers, insane thing you've ever seen. And the ending is this character recruits a bunch of people from Cyberpunk during the final battle of Witcher 3 and just has them unleash all of their technology on the Wild Hunt and all of your enemies and stuff. And it becomes this giant epic battle of Polish dark fantasy and cyberpunk technology, and it just becomes this chaotic
Hey Wyatt,
mess.
I'm gonna tell you something really, really weird right now. There is a game that is exactly what you just described. It's called Elex. And it's a perfect example of exactly the type of game we're talking about.
And then,
But it's a whole game.
during the credits, Kojima comes up and he's like, yeah, so this is how the world of Elex has started. This is this is all a prequel to Elex. This is how the world started.
Look, Elex is getting a sequel. It did well enough to get a sequel. So hey.
Jeez.
I would love that. That would be great.
All right, Brett, what do you got for us?
All right. So during the whole time during my my Ghost of Tsushima playthrough, me and one of my friends who was also playing it at the same time, we thought it would just be really funny if just like there was like a super low chance of like one of the Mongols or one of the citizens of Tsushima just walking around just had like a Yankee cap on, or just like had like an iPhone, just like weird, like what? And then like you turn around and look at it again, it's just gone. And like for some, we really hooked on that as just being like just part of the game, and just like, occasionally just seeing just a Ferrari just come over the hill and go down, just like, all right, well that was the Ferrari, the Ferrari of the hour, I guess. So like the most buzzkill ending of all is I'm just, let's say you don't win against Coat and Khan, and you get flung into the ocean a second time, and you wake up, and you're slumped over over a trash bag on the wet urban streets, and one of your friends nudges you on the shoulder and goes, dude, are you all right? We gotta, like, you just flopped over, man. Like, you were out for like a solid like minute. Just like, come on, we gotta go. And you were just like, you were in like the post the post like after drinking session of like a concert or something, and somehow you just imagined the entirety of Ghost of Tsushima.
Especially imagine if it pulls up and you'd face planted into like a manga or something.
And then the ending line, it cuts to black, and the last line is, "Are you okay, man? Looks like you've seen a ghost."
Oh my god! Yeah, and it just focuses on your character. Just really, that's just a hit.
And then you see Kojima handing you a banana, and that's full circle.
See,
and he goes, "This is where it starts. One banana is all it takes."
Where I thought you were going with that was like a what's that? Dang it! What's that movie called? The Jim Carrey movie where he's in like a fake town. Oh no! Come on!
No one tell him.
Nobody tell him.
Struggle.
Truman Show. Truman Show. I thought you were going a Truman Show route, where occasionally you're like on a movie set or something, and someone has like season 8 of Game of Thrones. Someone just has a Starbucks
with the Starbucks.
Cup,
yeah,
they're just like,
get rid of it as quick as possible.
Oh my god,
that'd be great if there was a game that actually did do that and was like pulling Truman Show shenanigans the entire time.
That did an Easter. They did like a little Easter egg of that, or like a little joke. In the very first level of Shadow Warrior, if you go back down the driveway where the cutscene is, there's like this. It looks
Yeah, I
kind of
did that.
weird. The road keeps going, but it looks weird. And then when you walk up to it, you notice that it's just a sheet that's made to look like the road. And you're like, what the hell? What's going on? And there's a little cut. And then you look through the cut, and there's just a bunch of robots behind it, all lined up, like ready to kill, but they don't do anything. It's great.
Cool.
Wonderful. All right, so we've created our secret endings, which means we can continue our discussion about inane game mechanics, moving past the secret endings. Because I really wanted to just shove this right in the middle somewhere, just a random spot in the show. So someone's gonna click in just to this portion and be like, "What? What did I just listen to?" And
You should have saved the game until the very, very end, and that would have been the secret ending of the show.
Oh yeah, after the
No.
outro.
Game.
Well, Wyatt, how do you know I'm not gonna do that?
Look. After the Final Fantasy bit, I expect only the worst from you at this point.
Oh yeah,
Like everything is up in the air. My entire life is a lie at this point.
Your entire existence, I don't believe it for a second. Facade. You're just a really, really well rendered, convincing VTuber, for all I know.
Oh boy! I'll take that as a compliment. I'll take it.
You know what? I'll take it. I'm not gonna deny that. All right. So I do think we have a rare smooth transition to talk about Elex, which I never thought we would have a proper segue to Elex, which is really the game I wanted to mention this time, because I think that is a perfect example of a game that is like terrible in so many ways. And I don't mean that game is bad, because I think it is a good game for what it is, but it has so many problems that are just very clear, like they didn't know how to do this. Like the jetpack doesn't work well. You do this weird upwards, like it's like farting, right? It's not even like a jetpack. It just, you fart yourself upwards like 10 feet, and then you fall back down, and if you fall slightly too far, you take fall damage.
What a scene.
It is super awkward. The melee combat is almost impossible because you get one shot by pretty much everything in the game right at the start, which, you know, often goes hand in hand with these Eastern European games that are coming out, especially when they're low budget and trying to hit that like almost survival-y thing. Except Elex is like high fantasy, so it didn't fit super well. And then this weird bird will run at you out of the forest and just kill you in 2 hits if you don't know what to do. And then the bows, they get bows wrong because your bows don't shoot with like hold to aim. No, you press the button, your bow shoots like it's a gun. It's super disorienting. It feels so weird. And it has the one like major killer in that game is that it doesn't have any very interesting skills or anything to get to. It just has these like a lot of weird unthematic things that are like, okay, you get like this thing that gives you like a 30% chance to do this thing at some point, and it was just so boring. But it does have the really cool thing where if you pick one of 3 factions, and the game can be like completely different based on which faction you pick. And as soon as a game does that, I'm gonna give it more than one playthrough. It's happening. There's no choice. All right, I have to see what happens if I side with the Viking people that use magic versus the people that shoot everyone else with guns. All right, I need to know what happens. And Elex is one of the few games that like delivers on a lot of that. They actually managed to get like 3 completely different playthroughs in the game based on what faction you choose in an open world like RPG, which is bonkers. So I think that is one thing that like it's in that Biomutant situation of a lot of the things this game does just don't succeed, but it's enough is there so that you can see what they were going for, and they almost did it. They're just a little bit away, and that's why I'm legitimately excited for Elex 2.
You're recreating what they were probably imagining in their head, in your own head.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
yeah.
if you guys, oh, I know where you guys were going. That's so cool. And then it keeps you playing.
It's almost like reading a young adult novel as an adult, right? Where sometimes you'll read one that's just interesting enough to be like, I can see how this could be really cool if it wasn't written like it was a 12-year-old.
I've said this a lot, not on this show, but to a lot of my friends. It's like YA novels always have like either the dumbest or the absolute coolest like single sentence like pitch ever,
Yep.
and then they almost never do anything with it. But
yeah.
But like when you sum up a lot of YA novels in a single sentence, I'm like, that sounds cool. And then
That's great.
And then they just
They poof out of existence.
I'm like, oh, it's filled with teenagers. Okay.
It's filled with teenagers, and none of them act like teenagers at all. It's horrible. Horrible.
No.
And there's a government that they have to take down that's being very weirdly
guess what?
oppressive.
Or there's supernatural things, but the supernatural things are also sexy.
Or
there's a game that the entirety of society is based around that these teenagers have to take part in.
All right.
Or the ultimate kill move, vampires.
Just vampires. Look, that's supernatural, but they're sexy. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Look, this is now a book podcast. I hope you're all okay with that.
I had to get that out there because I just think it's interesting.
It fits with this comparison.
Yeah. They always have the coolest one-sentence description, and then you go beyond that one sentence, I'm like, nope.
I mean, that's basically every Spiders game and Piranha Bytes game. That's all of them. You got the one that's like a pirate RPG where like old gods and krakens are coming alive and are like about to crush the world.
Can I also ask, how are pirate RPGs like not more of a thing? Like that is such an obvious like come on, how?
Especially because we've had them. Like we've had AAA pirate RPGs.
Yeah.
It was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. That was a AAA pirate RPG, and then they just gave up on it. Almost. It's like it is a role-playing game, but it's not quite what you think of when you think of like a third-person RPG.
It's not a lot. It doesn't have a lot of like the stat.
There's not like hard numbers.
Min-maxing. Yeah. It's not.
Dude, I want to see a AAA pirate RPG with hard numbers. Give me that. I want it so bad.
Yeah.
It'll never happen.
Dude,
It'll never happen.
The like most upset I think I've ever been in an announcement is when they were like Sea of Thieves, not Sea of Thieves, Skull and Bones was like, we're gonna become like a multiplayer only, multiple people on a ship, basically just Sea of Thieves, but again, and it's one of the most disappointing announcements I think I've ever heard. It's so sad. It's so sad. I just give me my pirate RPG.
Give us a series that's basically just Assassin's Creed 4, but is its own series. Totally fine with that.
Dude, what I want to know is why we don't have like a proper new steampunk crazy RPG. Give me something with a setting that is like industrial fantasy. I feel like that's a setting that so many people can like vaguely relate to because of the fact that there's things that are relatable to like actual modern technology, and then there's all the crazy Final Fantasy things of you got magic and all that fun shenanigans. I want to see some more steampunk stuff, especially if it's like we get a lot of steampunk indies, but we don't get a lot of steampunk high budget games.
Speaking of which, question for the two of you: is there a game where almost everything sucks, but the world is either visually so interesting or just the history of the world is so fascinating that you kept playing just because you liked the world and almost nothing else?
We already had the Destiny conversation last episode.
Yeah, that is to me literally what Destiny is. Yeah, at least Destiny 1. Destiny 2 I think is a pretty fun game at a lot of points, but Destiny 1 is I think almost to a T that of there's so many things that didn't work, and I'm talking before the expansions because I do think Destiny 1 ended in a really good spot relative to where it began.
I think Destiny 1 after all of his expansions is still probably better than like I had more fun with it than Destiny 2. I'll put it that way.
Well, yeah, because it didn't have the FOMO. That's the big thing to me is Destiny 2 uses so much FOMO. Which is why I just can't really enjoy it because every time I play it, I'm just constantly concerned about like, am I gonna get this thing? And then I realize it doesn't matter, and
here we go
dumb.
with the Destiny again. Hooray!
And Alex isn't even here this time.
I know, it's so sad. It's probably better for his health that we're talking about this without him because he's so bad.
Get it all out now before he comes back.
But guy. It's also we're talking about the positives now, so maybe he would have a hard time considering that all he does is hate that game and then continue to play it. But I'm super guilty, Wyatt, of just like coming home from high school and just like sitting in like that first Black Garden location and just looking at it for like an hour and just being like, why can't there be more of this in the game that is literally set in this world? Nothing else looks like this with the green and it looks like a maze and there's red flowers everywhere. Oh my god, it was so sick.
There are so many areas in that game that like the background is way more interesting
Yes.
than what you're
Yeah.
actually playing it.
The concept art for Destiny is like the highest tier art ever made for video games ever.
Yeah.
I have
It's so
both
good.
of the art books because the concept art is just better than either game.
Their entire art division, whatever they're being paid, they're not being paid enough.
Yeah, no kidding.
Wyatt, I looked through my Steam library of like very old games I haven't played in a few years, and I did find a game that I think almost perfectly fits the bill.
Oh,
So
yeah?
it's this little game called Way of the Samurai 4.
Oh, okay.
heard of
I
this,
just
I've heard
heard
of
some
this.
acknowledgement from Brett. So Way of the Samurai is this super weird like sandbox RPG franchise that's kind of roguelike, and that if you die, you like restart at the beginning with some currency to get like different starting options and whatnot. Its big thing is that it's like set during the English like empire meeting the Japanese area, and it's like this clashing of three factions that are all very different and like have different ideologies. You need to like go around and decide which faction's gonna win, and you can see these different outcomes in all the roguelike ways of like you play it with one faction one time, or you die a bunch of times and you get better at the game, so then you can do this other ending and like do a combat heavy playthrough. Except the game mechanics are terrible. They don't work. Most of the time. It's incredibly janky, possibly like the jankiest game I think I've played that is still managed to keep me playing for the entire time.
Mhm.
It is so like bonkers poorly put together on so many levels, but it is like the only thing that exists that is like it. There's nothing else that comes close to that way of like walking through this weird world with like the Japanese like fantasy interpretation of what English people look like. That's the part that sells it to me.
Oh,
Cool.
interesting.
That's pretty cool.
It's not even like they look like English people. They look like this weird mix of some alternate universe fan fiction version of people. It's just strange. It's so unique. And the game has so many good ideas that are just terribly executed in almost every way.
Mhm.
It's really one of those things where they didn't hit the mark on basically anything. But it is like a franchise I think is super interesting because of that.
Well, and it's interesting too because like the setting of a game like can influence you to keep playing. The same goes for if it's part of a popular franchise of
Yeah.
something that maybe isn't even video game. Like immediately the two things that come to my mind, obviously Star Wars Battlefront 2 is like the big one, but and the new one, I mean, and then also Ryan played this a little bit with me. Aliens Colonial Marines. Now,
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I do not no. Brett, before you
No,
start.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah.
Okay. So Aliens Colonial Marines sucks. It is a terrible,
Yes.
terrible video game. However, the one thing they got right is the atmosphere. All of the music, they recreated all of the environments wonderfully. All of the guns sound like they should. It atmospherically is very Aliens. So what you do is you take the Templar GFX overhaul mod, you slap
Mhm.
that bad boy onto Colonial Marines, and you've got yourself a pretty good Aliens game. That then is also with visual improvements like way better lighting and just gameplay in general. And would I play the game otherwise? Probably not. But it got the Colonial Marines, it's got the Aliens like setting so pitch perfectly that is just like it's so much fun to play. And yeah, same thing with Battlefront 2. Is it a great game? No, it's kind of not. It kind of
Yeah.
sucks. But will I continue to play it from time to time? Yeah.
Maybe.
Because there's just so much Star Wars smeared everywhere. It's cheating. It is 100%
Yeah.
cheating but there's so much beautiful Star Wars just slathered all over the place that I just kind of lose myself in it sometimes, and it's fun to just kind of like role play by yourself,
Definitely. All right. I think we've covered a lot of the games we're going to talk about. Anyone have any other games they want to bring up with this Stockholm Syndrome concept? Anything truly despicable that you've managed to complete despite its despicableness?
Oh, Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Oof.
My feelings on the game are very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I can't not hate it because of the amount of time it's taken from me and how by the end how just nothing, how I felt like it was all leading to something. And just to be clear, I spent 120 hours in the game just trying to finish the story and get to the last bit of story.
I'll never get those back.
It took me that long to get there.
That long?
Mm-hmm.
But dude, I love that Viking setting. I love that aesthetic so much. I think on the whole the writing is not great, but it has its moments. There are some legitimately cool missions. Some missions actually remind me a lot of Witcher quests, where you have to kind of gain favor with another group, right? And so this person's like, okay, I'm this military person. I have these 3 leaders, but I suspect one of them is a traitor. And so you have to go talk to these people, and you have to kind of put the pieces together of how these people got ambushed so quickly. And then you have to make a decision of which one is the traitor. And there's different endings depending on which one you get, and that can change gameplay and story stuff pretty drastically. It feels very Witcher. It was very strange. I was playing it, I was like, this feels a lot like Witcher. It's very weird in a good way. But then it just stretched itself out for so long. But that setting and sometimes really interesting missions and occasionally good writing and crunchy combat it just kind of patted me in the butt and kept me going for that long.
Yeah. All right. I did, while you're doing that, do another quick scan, and I found, I think, 2 more games that fit what we're talking about pretty well. The first one I want to mention because I think it's actually good, but it's just criminally under-budgeted for what it was, which is this wild indie game called Victorum. So I don't know if either of you have ever heard about this. You might have seen GIFs of it before,
I think so,
and not have known what it is.
The name is
So this was a phenomenon on social media 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago at this point. And the whole deal was that it was this game where you combined spells in a roguelike inspired by FTL. And it was in third person, and you'd walk around, and it had this crazy destruction engine where all the buildings were destructible, and you'd summon meteors from the sky to rain on buildings and whatnot. And that sole mechanic is what makes the game fun to play, because the rest of it is I don't want to say bad, because I think it is really a case of they were just super under budgeted for when the game came out, and just didn't manage to succeed with what they were really, really going for. But at the same time, they succeeded at the spellcrafting part, which is the main thing they were trying to do. So it's still very fun to play, but only for a little while, where it kind of falls apart after you wear out that enjoyment of that spellcrafting bit, and that fun of kind of creating these different spells and seeing how you can get how many meteors can you possibly get to spawn at once on the screen when you use as many different modifiers as possible. Can you possibly find the way to give Kojima to get you a banana during the game? I don't know.
There's a spell that just spawns Hideo Kojima on the map to
I wouldn't put it past them.
And he doesn't throw them. He squirts the banana out of the skin and shoots.
Yeah, he shoots it like a gun, and then the banana inside just splats against your face, and you're like, what?
That's evil.
So yeah, that's the first one, but I think that game is actually it's a lot better now, and that it's very playable and kind of succeeds at what it's going for, but it still looks very jank. But there's a little internet phenomenon game by the name of Cube World.
My heart. Don't do this to me.
Now, Cube World is this
No.
wild, like, 2-person project that came out in this early alpha phase 8-ish years ago, maybe even 10. And it came out in this early alpha, got super popular on YouTube. This was one of the first YouTube phenomenons after Minecraft.
Yeah,
That popped
I'm
out.
looking at gameplay.
Yep.
Yeah.
You remember this game? I think most people that are listening to this podcast, if they look this up, will remember what this game is, if they forgot about it. So when it went silent for years and years and years, people were like, okay, maybe it'll come out eventually. Because the developer would, like, once a year, once every 2 years, post an update of cool new things they worked on and new stuff. But they weren't updating the alpha with all of that. They were kind of releasing whenever they had a major thing. And then the game went radio silent for like 3 years, and then randomly got an announcement they're going to be on Steam in like a month, showed up on Steam and released with a bunch of changes that completely ruined a lot of the game.
Yeah.
And it's one of those scenarios where
everything.
they changed so many things that people actually legitimately liked about the original, where they made it so that your progression of like flight and mounts and whatnot is now determined by zone. So every time you leave the zone you're in, you lose all of your abilities in like flight things.
What?
But the game is randomly generated
What?
and exploration based, so you need to leave your
Yes.
zone to go do different things. So
What?
it becomes this horrible
Welcome.
grind of losing your ability to do things and then not being able to do anything. It is
Why would you do that?
bonkers how
What?
how poorly executed and thought out it was. It's the kind of thing where, like, this is why you have a public alpha of your game, because as soon as that change is released, you would see the feedback and be like, okay, we can revert it now while we're not completely messing everything up, right?
I mean that's game development in a bubble for you. If there was ever an example of just like completely making
It is
a game
abundantly
your
clear
own-
that this game was not QA tested at all. Like,
Yep.
the QA testers were the players, and they did not get new builds. So there was no feedback aside from that people loved the game when it first launched in alpha, which meant the game eventually launched with terrible, terrible ideas in it, and is just horrid. Which is a shame, because it does a lot of really cool things. Like, there's tons of really cool randomly generated areas you can go to. It's got a lot of structures and like randomly generated quests and this cool weapon modification system, and a lot of things that are like potentially very cool. But as of now, it kind of seems like the game just sort of stopped development because of the public reaction to it just being so bad.
Yep.
As soon as it launched on Steam, it was just horrendously bad.
God, and the art style is so charming. Like I
I
prefer
know.
this smaller voxel style over something like Minecraft that has a lot of larger cubes.
Well, because
This is
it feels
so,
like someone
charming.
took like Final Fantasy 3 and just made it 3D.
Well, it
Mhm.
feels like it's more made out of Legos than anything else. Like
Yeah.
really tiny Lego pieces, which is so cool.
It's just extruded pixel art characters, which it looks very good, and it's not good. Not good. It's
So
not.
sad.
It did not end
I
well.
think that,
I never heard that story before. That's the most depressing thing I've ever heard.
yeah.
Well, you can go
There-
visit the
there-
Steam
Wow.
page and see like the reviews. It is rough.
I think there might be like a mod that returns it back to the normal version, or there might I forget. There either is one, or I just want one that badly that I've convinced my brain that there is one.
Yeah.
But still, that doesn't justify the price tag at all. Such a shame.
It's really, really sad because that is one of
Yeah.
those games that had so much potential, and everyone originally loved it when it was initially shown. So it's just really sad to see it not succeed, and kind of sabotage itself in the way it did. Especially because I think the developers are just super hurt by the feedback, and I get that. But at the same time, that's the sort of thing that you need to learn to become not immune to, but to make sure
Yeah.
you can dissect what the useful feedback is from that
Well,
stuff,
that's
because the
also
game
what
is
happens.
savable.
Well, that's also what happens when like you don't get any feedback until the game comes
Yeah.
out. It all comes at you at once rather
Exactly.
than like more easily digestible.
Especially when
chunks
all
of-
the initial feedback was positive. I think that's the big thing, is there was so much positive feedback that they just didn't think they could really do any wrong. So they just went for whatever they wanted, and it failed.
Played themselves.
Oh God, that hurts.
Which means
That
we're
hurts
ending
hearing
on
about.
a negative note this time. All right.
Oh,
Because that's what I got. That's the end of it for our games of Stockholm Syndrome. Because I played a lot of Cube World. I wanted it to be
I'm
good.
with you there, man.
It wasn't that good. Brett, I am gonna recommend though, go play Dragon Quest Builders if you haven't.
that was
'Cause
like
that is like,
that-
especially 2, it's on Game Pass. So download that from your Game Pass and see
I'll
what
give it a
Cube World
shot.
could have been.
that game was the cyberpunk of like my childhood right there. I remember being so incredibly hyped, and just like
Mhm.
cyberpunk, it came out and no one was happy.
Mhm.
Nobody. Look, and I do think Cyberpunk is another good game that kind of fits this estimation, at least for Wyatt and I. Of it came out in this awful state, but the issue with it is mostly just clearly time and overscoping. That is just going
And
to take time to
overpromising,
fix.
too.
if
Yeah.
it wasn't the technical mess that it was, it would be such a different.
Especially if it was
story.
billed as more of a Deus Ex style game and less of a open world RPG. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
they would have found a lot of success without needing to do all this crazy marketing that they did. But
It would have been a situation where it's like, yeah, like this isn't the game we were promised, but hey, we still have a good game here. Now it's like this isn't what we were promised, and it's also a giant mess.
yeah, it
Mhm.
doesn't function on a console. Whole bunch of other issues. Yeah, Cyberpunk I think is the kind of thing where it's hard to talk about it because it's so disappointing. It's
It's a
so
really-
sad.
It's a really good game underneath all this garbage.
I want to believe in Cyberpunk survival, but we'll see. That we've yet to see any major progress
Yeah,
on a
but
lot of the
Ryan-
fronts.
But Ryan, they have to stop development so they can work on Witcher Go or whatever it's called.
Yeah. I think they're too enveloped in
In the
Witcher
Witcher
to really
mobile
give a
game.
crap.
In the Witcher mobile game. All right, that means we're to shoutouts. We do shoutouts at this point in time. Who's ready?
I got one. Shout out because again I've been playing Witcher. Shout out to whoever came up with the idea of having a certain Quentin Tarantino quote at a certain point in the game that is like it's like a little reference that if you weren't paying attention you wouldn't hear. I can't say the reference because it's very inappropriate and
Yep.
would mess up the stream, but I laughed and I thought it was really cool.
All right, I'm gonna give a shout out to there's a little hidden secret ending in the original Earthworm Jim Special Edition. If you play the game on the easiest difficulty and beat it, you don't get the end cutscene. What you get is like a 30-minute long developer just talking about worm facts that steadily becomes more and more demented by the end. I'll play you guys a clip of it after this episode, but I'd encourage anyone who hasn't seen that to just go listen to it on YouTube because it becomes bonkers by the end. The
That's
guy is
awesome.
like just describing worm facts and then also complaining about how the developers make him read these lines for the credit sequence that no one's gonna see.
Ah man.
It's incredible. Oh, it's so much fun. Brett,
Good.
close us out.
Shout out to a game that I had found, played, and beat last night. Lycanthorn 2 on Steam.
Yeah.
It is a Doom engine game that's like first person Castlevania, and there's like 4 characters you can switch from. It's open world somehow, and it was very short but very good, and I would recommend it.
Good couple hours of a night.
Oh yeah, it was not very long or difficult at all.
Hey, sometimes those kind of demos are great to see. All right, with
Oh, yeah.
that, we've done it. We did the episode. As always, podcast 7 a.m. Tuesday mornings Eastern time. Go watch it, listen to it wherever you would like to. We do have cameras now for the people that are listening. If you do want to watch you can search Double One Radio Gamecast on YouTube and find us with cameras on and video and any significant video podcasts that we occasionally do. There will be a build from January podcast coming soon. We're leaving time because we have to organize around our own inane schedules and whatnot, and figuring out what.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to reveal what each individual is doing from the build to January to each other, so we just need to make sure everyone has enough time to prepare something.
Some of us still have to figure out what they're even going to do in the first place.
All right, that means it's the end of the show. The outro is playing. I hope you all have a good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. As always, tune in and watch us live on Twitch sometimes. Occasionally.
Never stop.
Yeah, and if you've only listened to us and you haven't seen our faces before, you missed out
Don't.
on all the times I had to.
Sorry in advance.
You missed out on all the times I had to mute my mic and